So let me go over some other theory aspects that I wanted to cover, and then what I think we will skip completely theory, and we will do lab work 3 and lab work 4 next time that we meet. And I'm covering today the theory part of it, so it's going to be a little bit more boring than usual. But, oh. All right, so the work window structure that we talked about before, it's a way to break down your entire project in smaller chunks. So you can break them down and you can study them and estimate them. So by definition, it's a deliverable-oriented group of project elements that are organized in such way that defines the scope of the work. So it's a hierarchy system. Like, for example, take a car, an automobile. So we can break that automobile in different sections. The chassis, the running gear, the powertrain, body and sheet metal, HVAC, fuel, electric. So we break down that car in areas or sections, right? So we can take each one of those sections and further break them down. For example, if we take the body and sheet metal part, we break that down, we will have the window assemblies, the hood and deck, fenders, doors, roof, panel, exterior attachment. So we are breaking that down into a more detailed sections, right? We can take the doors and then break them down further into door shell, weather stripping, window regulator, locks, and so on. So we have break it down even more, the definition or the description of this segment into smaller components. So the idea is that when you put together all these components, they form the door. When you put all of these components together, they form the body and sheet part. And when you put all of these together, you have an automobile. So the concept is in estimating, okay, we break down that huge automobile part that is very difficult to estimate into smaller sections. And then we can estimate this one very easily, right? The materials, labor, equipment, tools, subcontractors that we need for that small part are easier to figure out than the whole automobile. So it's a divide and conquer kind of approach. We do the same with the cost estimates for our construction project. Basically, what we want to do is we want to break it down following the CSI format. So we take the CSI divisions and we break our project into those 50 divisions and we start working how much each one of those cost. So what you need to do is you need to think. You need to think a lot about what the project looks like, how to go down from the ground up, what are the different elements that we have on the life cycle, who is going to do what, when, where, why, how, and for how much. So you're going to describe what would be the process of cleaning the area, putting a fence, bringing in temporary utilities, excavating for your footings, putting the footings, putting in the slab on grade, go up with the structure, close it up, do the interior parts. You think what is the logical sequence, and then you try to figure out how much it's going to cost each one of those components. It's easier to break it down and take one at a time than it is to try to estimate the whole thing at once. Okay, the assembly estimate is sort of the concept of putting together different elements that form one component. And so if we can estimate that assembly, we then count how many assemblies we have, and we get the cost for that portion. So we could do that in columns. We could do that in some of the footings if they are all the same. We can work a little bit on that assemblies.
How do you? I understand how it works, but if I was doing a takeoff for this building, and I was following that logic, and I was going to take off the price of all the doors, I would have my door slab out of my closer, I'd have my latch set, I'd have any other hardware, and if I have 500 doors in this building, I could multiply that times 500. But the reality is if I'm buying 500 closers, I'm going to get one price for the closer versus if I'm buying one closer from a vendor. So the vendor's going to charge me, $200 for that closer if I buy one of them, but he's going to give me a discount of $180 if I buy 500 of them.
Right.
So if I multiply it times 500, I'm going to get a higher number than I'm actually going to get, and that might price me out of might make me less competitive, and then I don't get the bid.
Well,
so how do I factor that in?
Yeah, that you put it into your unit cost. Okay.
Right.
You say, okay, I'm going to have 500 doors. Okay. And if you know that you're getting a discount for volume, then you should use your discounted value.
So the first thing I need to do is do my takeoff, get my quantity, then figure out what my cost is, plug in the cost, and then it populates through.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. That's exactly the way it's going to work. So we want to keep the same level of detail on each one of these branches for the work breakdown structure. You break it down to the point where you can handle, where you can describe it, when you can estimate it. That's where you stop. You don't go down to the screw levels, in the door to attach them to the hinges. You don't need to do that. You may go to the level of door, and that's it. Maybe, depending on the application, you may want to have a different type of doors. You may have the right opening door versus the left opening, or the ones that open to the inside to the outside. If you have different materials, then you do have to have different type of doors. You have glass doors, you have wood doors, you have metal doors. Then you have to separate them to the point where it's useful for you. Okay? When it's useful for you. If you have a very high probability of getting the job, you want to do a very good detailed estimate, because that's going to be easier for you when you go to purchase the items. If you are not sure and you don't want to spend too much time, then you just count how many doors you have, you multiply by an average price, and you hope for the best. All right. Each element in the structure should be fully described to allow the estimator to identify how many resources you have. You want to use this also to avoid duplications, overlap, omissions. Identify what is included in each section so it doesn't overlap with the rest. Include all the deliverables, reporting. This is a flow chart from the Project Management Book of Knowledge, which shows you the different aspect of project management. And creating the work breakdown structure is key to do a lot of the project management activities. It brings you, for one side, the risk management theory. So the risk planning goes based on the work breakdown structure. Also the cost estimate, budget, human resources, quality planning, communication planning, purchasing planning, activities and resources allocation, and definitions. All of these activities depends on a good, well-created work breakdown structure. So it's an important tool in managing a project. It helps you to understand the components that go into building a project, the relationship between these elements. It also helps as a blueprint for the work that you're going to do. Now we can talk a little bit about the different type of estimating methods that there are. You have detailed or definite estimating. That's the method that we will use in this course. It's basically you do a takeoff of the elements that you have and then figure out the cost. Direct estimating, estimating by analogy, unitized approach, firm quotes, handbook estimating, learning curve, staffing methods, statistical and parametric estimating. Those are all the different estimating methods that we have. The detailed estimating, the one that we're going to use, is it's basically, estimate all the resources at the lowest level of the work value structure. It's estimate the quantities out of the drawings and then multiply by the unit prices. It's based on the takeoff that you will do from the drawings. And the source for the cost, again, is going to be our books, the cost books. In real life, you may have your suppliers that will provide you the cost for the different materials. Some of the items that we need to consider also is scrap and waste. When you estimate the amount of material that you need to cover an area, you have to think about if the unit that you receive the items are going to fit in that area. And if you need to, break or cut a section of it to make it fit, then the portion that you're throwing away is waste. So you need that waste to be taken into consideration when you do your estimate, because otherwise you're going to be short on materials. I'll give examples of that later on when we do the work. Like, for example, let's suppose you're setting up this ceiling here, right? So in that corner, you see that the rectangle, the square, is smaller than in the center because it doesn't completely fit the exact size. So you have to cut a section of a tile to fit that corner, right? So then, if you start counting what area do we have here, and you divide that by 2 by 2, which is the area of these tiles, guess what? You're going to be short in the number of tiles that you need. Because when the installer comes and puts here, he needs to cut the section and throw that away. You're not counting that section that is being thrown away. So that's a small example that shows you that you need to consider the waste when you do your calculations. So I'm going to show you how to handle waste in the estimate. Estimate the labor hours, how much time it's going to take for the skilled people to convert the materials into the final product. These are some labor hours that you may use depending if you're working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, or the regular hours with vacations and holidays. The base productivity also affects the time that it will take labor to convert that material into the final product. So we will basically use the labor productivity out of the RS-Means book or the database that we have. So if they say it's going to take you, 5 hours to put together 500 square feet of roof, then that's the number we're going to use. In reality, you get that from experience, you get that from your subcontractors, depending on how far away you are from the source of materials, the location of the work, how many trays you have on the side. There's a lot of things that goes into productivity. Actually, there's a complete course in productivity in construction. So we're just going to be based on the numbers given to us by the cost data. If there is any abnormal conditions that will change the time and the cost for your estimate, labor rate has also burden cost in it. The benefits for the employee, overhead, you have medical benefits and so on that you may have to pay if you have your own employee. Otherwise, it's just the labor rate that you pay to your subcontractor, right? Then you have the indirect costs, we've talked about those, and planning, the scheduling costs, you know, how to create the critical path method and to have the scheduling part of the project and the tracking of it. That's an additional indirect cost that you have to include. For our course, we're not going to work with the schedule. We're just going to do direct costs, so we're not going to get into the scheduling. So basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to use on-screen takeoff to take the measurements out of the drawings. We're going to use Excel to bring in those measurements and the cost from our cost data, put them together, multiply them, and get the cost estimate. All right? And if you want to do the work breakdown structure, there is some software that can do the work breakdown structure for you. If not, the work breakdown structure that we're going to do is going to follow the divisions for the CSI. So that's going to be the work breakdown structure for us, the divisions of CSI. And the estimate is going to be organized in a way that I will show you later on.